Greetings. This is Officer Barbies. It's the possessive. This is a communique for Vladimir Putin. Attention to all of your people who you are defending and protecting. CC, Stalin, and all of his people he is defending and protecting. Well, with this situation of the death conditions of the weather of the outdoor environment here, we've had a series of events here in Washington, D.C. There are absolutely no signs of life from the perfect weapons system of what used to be the human species here. This human species won't stop being this flood like a river, like the Nile flooding Egypt. In these conditions over the past few days, with it being well over 100 degrees constantly and not really getting even below like 80 or 90 in any measurable proper way, this flow, this Nile-like flood of the fertile valley of these weapons, of these human products, has proven there has been absolutely no human life involved with this inhuman act of the human species. The conditions have been so deadly and difficult to survive. It has been such that anything out in the conditions shows it is dying in the conditions so fierce, destructive, and deadly. While every human product, like every human shoe, every human shirt, has been filled with some sort of weapons system, like in a cartoon, like in Looney Tunes. With every measure of these inhuman weapons out in these conditions no human can survive in or will ever willingly go out in, except the worst sort of exposure to their deaths rapidly, has led to these measures where I've measured probably 1 million human pairs of shoes and shirts and such, and not a single one of these weapons using these human products trying to appear to be a human has been a living human the way any form of life in these death conditions shows it is a dying form of life in these death conditions. While these appearing human weapons using these human products in no way human, we're out in the millions again in these death conditions this has never occurred in. None of them showed any signs of being alive or even being made of living materials. In the death conditions, they should have been sweating, they should have been oily, they should have been red, they should have been showing signs of heat. So over these past days, where we were well into the hundreds, and it was even more difficult than just having this sort of a heat index, all these human products that should have been being used by humans, that should have in no way been in the conditions with any sort of choice to not be, were in the conditions showing they were not in any way, shape, or form any type of a form of life, or even having previously been a form of life. So now we've had this condition, this weapon is really perfecting itself. These human products are starting to move around in platoons of weapons use. We're starting to see these products pretending to be humans, move around like they're human platoons. Like this weapon system has figured out how to move around in platoons in order to deploy the systems platoons can deploy, so that these weapons systems of these products that are supposed to be under control because living life forms using these products are controlled by physics itself, to not be capable of this severe extreme damage this weapon system is causing. With this weapon system having figured out, with no life left involved, of human life, while using these human products appearing to be living humans, how to create platoons of all the weapons that a platoon can deploy at once to be this perfect weapon, of all the weapons of a system's worth of a weapon that a platoon is capable of deploying. While we're seeing these movements of these mass movements of these human products pretending to be humans, where they almost always seem to be moving in a company's worth of human products at a time, like pairs of shoes. And these companies are always looking to be moving in a brigade pattern as well, to the whole brigade's worth. With I having been through a sequence of training over the sequence of the Army of One boot camp, boots on the ground training sequence and scenario at the start of the War on Terror, and having been exposed with an understanding, having actually achieved battalion-wide, whole battalion movements. This is the only place I've ever seen this sort of mass movement of human products or humans, with it requiring the discipline of military training, like the Army of One training, to move this many human products like shoes or humans through infrastructure that this sort of movement can take place in. Well, I've been trying to compare some of what's going on here to like huge sporting events, like Big Ten football games I've been at in Bloomington at Indiana University, or class time, like being near the center of the university with all of the basic core classes of the 1,000+ person classes all taking place at the same time. I've been trying to compare that to these movements I've been seeing on the infrastructure with this human product movement pretending to be human life. Well, this weapon is perfect now. I'm in a zone where the zone itself is physically impossible to allow these attacks of these sustained weapons, munitions, dumps of munitions that attack as munitions themselves, that are weapons of attack, always attacking as the type of munitions they are. And now I'm suffering from having these infrastructure conveyances making these movements, like these battalion-sized movements around my location, so that the attacks I'm safe from by the physical makeup of my location are foiled, because these conveyances with the abilities to attack the way is physically impossible in the zone are being overridden by bringing in the physical matter with the ability to attack through the battalion-wide movements of conveyances capable of bringing munitions, being munitions, having munitions, and delivering attacks by munitions, capable of attacking in the zone that should never occur, because there are supposed to be physical limitations on the life forms using the conveyances, where the life forms cannot live through the munitions death conditions of being munitions that are always weapons of attack attacking. It's the type of munitions they are. The pace of this weapon system has picked up to the maximum pace it can be, with every form of human life no longer being a living human in any way, with there being absolutely no restrictions anymore by the basic nature of physics controlling human life forms because they're alive, to control their pace of attack with these weapon systems and munitions and these products of industry they're using with weaponization systems and techniques to militarize these products into munition systems like I'm speaking of. In the course of about 40 hours, they've moved on my locations. I was at Logan Circle in Washington, D.C. here. They brought out enough humans that weren't really humans. It's for them to be the munitions, for there to be constant bug attacks. Now there are constant bug attacks. There's just constant bug deliveries and constant bug attacks. There's also constant chemical weapon strikes, like these chemicals at mills and these industrial agents, like construction industry agents and the heavy equipment agents and industry products made munitions and militarized, such as road construction and even more than just like house construction, with them just immediately moving these weaponized heavy industry products that are never even supposed to be out of the mill zones and off the mill yards on my locations, and these basic locations needed to survive by anything that survives here. The plants are basically in stasis. I'm immortal. The rest of us are basically immortal and nearly invincible. The birds, the rats, the squirrels, the dogs, sort of. It's about the only forms of life out here left alive, with there being just this overwhelming flow of human products, in no way human lives, in no way living humans, in no way human products being filled or used by any form of life, higher or lower, or ever having been, as the fill, like what the clothes are going on, so that the basic makeup of physical reality itself cannot control the pace of attack of this weapons systems they are now. Their pace being incredible. Like, I've been walking between this Logan Circle and this little this route of about 4 blocks of having most of what is needed for it to be a sort of like a town square with everything a town needs. And within like 3 walks a day, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm seeing them actually go through years and years worth of progress at these business sites. Well, overnight, they're going through decades and decades worth of industry and construction. Like they brought out aged out, impossible to use ever parking meters, where they've slammed them down into illegal construction zones. All the construction zones are illegal. They've slammed down public transport systems, like just slamming down ramps on the sides of the roads here that are never allowed, and started moving the buses because the buses are part of their strike and attack system. With it sort of being like the movie Christine, basically we have this mobile mill system where these conveyances like the buses and higher level heavy wheel vehicles are rolling around with the weaponized systems that are never supposed to be mobile from the mills. Sort of like steam systems, steam whistles. These gaseous systems, these rocking idle engines of chemical plants, chemical gaseous attack and liquid gaseous attacks. And these vehicles are here on demand, almost like they're just parked at the perimeter of my visual zone. While it actually seeming to be, through much of the case, it's more like we're at a mill, like we're inside a 3D printer that can print from particulate matter, with these things actually just printing up sometimes to make their response time possible, where these particles I'm talking about, like these hissing whistle things and such, these engines not allowed to do this and all of that, these chemical plants spewing chemicals, these physical plants spewing all physical matter they can, but basically particulate matter, have all of the substrate they need here to then use the rest of their systems all over that just get here immediately to print from the environment of our substrate of a atmosphere, no longer an atmosphere, basically being all the ink cartridges even, so to understand how a printer works to print with. This weapon is perfect. The pace of this weapon is the maximum, and the fierce violence of this weapon system proves no form of life that is supposed to be the control system of these products as the interface user of these products is in any way, shape, or form any longer alive, because these lives are incapable of being alive with this interface use. And there are no longer in any way, shape, or form measurable human lives here, as this perfect weapon of a system of attack, of the militarization, of the weaponization of all industry products, has pushed beyond the boundaries it was held to by needing human interface users in any way, shape, or form being made of the lower life forms humans are made of, with the fierceness of the weaponization by the attacks that are endless of these weaponized industrial products of this weapon systems being so fierce. None of these lower forms of life are capable of being in any way, shape, or form the interface user of the interface of these products of the humans, incapable of using them this way. So now there is the threat. This is your warning. It's time to act. We've been through this. This zone is the staging zone. This is like the Nile flooding Egypt, sort of, except there's a proper flow through where they're trying to make this a swamp that's going to overflow and swamp every place the swamp can flow out to, where the swamp will remain a swamp and not turn into an ocean like Disney has the issue with in Florida, sort of, and them preparing to flood out while maintaining a flood fill here, starting with achieving this amount of flow in Rome, the next city-state, wanting to have this swamp create swamps of all city-states. With this place having the capability, with what they've proven with the industrial transport industry, where they can bring up act of God-like weather patterns, completely unnatural, to control all travel, they'll be able to do this again in the way they can control the flow of the transportation system, so they can max flood out while continuing the maximum flood amount here to achieve another zone of a maximum flood and have a maximum flow ability by their unnatural act of God, acts of nature that control all transportation, so they can have these acts of God of transportation while, as I have said, there is absolutely no physical limitation of the physical limitation of any form of human life here, of the human life interface use of these interfaces that are supposed to be limited by the nature of physics itself, like humans are made of lower life forms at least, that are supposed to control the fierceness of this weaponization of all industrial products, any sort of industrialization of anything. You need to be prepared. You need to strike now. You need to strike this zone depleted of all these interfaces capable of this. As I am using interfaces these systems never use, with these death conditions so fierce it's proving we're in this zone, with it being a death zone, no humans are capable of surviving in whatsoever. But we still have this issue of all these human products we absolutely want not in this zone ever. So we need this strike to completely make it such that these products can never be in this zone. With I not needing that, I needing to lock down at the Hilton Hotel, lock in as the only occupant of it, holding the whole zone of the Spy Museum, Hilton Hotel, L'Enfant Plaza, Kremlin-like complex, castle-like complex. I need that whole lock-in zone to lock down INF, to be the only occupant at, to have running at full capacity, as it is supposed to be an entire ecosystem within itself. That's the minimum strike need I need. Clearly it's going to take a maximum strike to get me in, to have it under control, to control it, to lock it down, to have it controlled with I within. With my Marshall Way military of these animals and other forms of life, the birds, the rats, the squirrels, the dogs maybe, needing to be in with I, but basically being capable of getting in the way with it locked. Like I can't get in, I can't get out, everything locked out, can't get in, basically can't get out, they can still get in, basically. So that's the minimum amount of force we need here. The threat is the maximum of what I've said. With these weaponized, industrialized, industrial products being a perfect weapon of perfect strike, nature and systems. With the big event being here, with all my industrial products, doggy. When I try to run my FM radio that can generate its own electricity by crank, we have this weaponization of all industrialized products that are completely against the creation of electricity by an individual, like a product user of an FM radio that has a crank that creates electricity. Well, we also have this issue of the entire industry industrialized by weaponization against broadcast frequencies capable of being a state of physical nature, of physical matter itself, of a medium, of living within a substrate of a physical medium, of expression of communication such as FM radio. And these attacks being the maximum and the maximum fierceness to try to stop FM communications and the basic ability of nature itself to express FM communications, when mixed with my products and their abilities to create electricity. Like this is the next thing, this industrialization, militarized, weaponization unit of all existence I'm in here, of these products no longer limited by any form of life, have expressed with me using my USB battery unit capable of charging itself by crank to try to overcome my FM radio unit, only an FM radio unit with AM, with a crank capable of generating its own power, trying to overcome its ability to overpower the interference so the FM radio cannot function. When the introduction of the newest and latest unit of my smartphone with the camera that has the capability to record the music from the radio, while also being a camera, with this industrialization of the weaponization of the use of these interfaces, trying to remove the ability to create any sort of record targeting specifically video records. With the issue having been at the maximum when I tried to make a recording of a Metallica song off of Big 100 at 100.3 FM here in Washington, D.C., with my radio basically running at the constant ability of it to run by reception of FM that powers it to run as an FM radio alone, with the station starting to be knocked. When I started the recording, and everything went wild, like there should have been no right to have a camera running because of how many policing units were nearby of militarized, weaponized, industrial units, not that, but pretending they are, while there was the flood in the zone of the products that were supposed to be controlled by the life forms, supposed to be piloting them or being the interface users of them, that were in no way any form of life that physics could control, to try to knock down the FM frequency itself of the waves of reality of physics itself, while also that system trying to knock the broadcast tower off the air, with I then trying to basically be the repeater responder station to keep the FM song broadcast going on my end by generating the electricity to overpower the interference, leading to the attempted complete stopping of my ability to generate electricity with my cranking electric generating systems, while I link together all my systems, my electric generating only unit with a battery system to generate electricity and store it, while my crank generating electric system on my FM radio was deployed and used, with my smartphone having charged enough to be the camera to capture the sequence of events. While I started to link through the redundant units my systems, and they foiled systems like a USB battery being capable of charging a USB battery, while they tried to foil the systems of a USB output device capable of creating its own electricity from being capable of, in any way, shape, or form, distributing that electricity to the next USB device, to prove the perfect attack system of this militarized system of these weaponized industrial agents of all industrialization of anything having been militarized to a weaponized state of weaponization, where no life forms made of the lower life human lives are made of can in any way, shape, or form survive the combat zone of the maximum attack of the system of maximum attack always. So I no longer beseech, I order. This isn't an order. This is the reality of reality. This is your warning. They've gone this far over the line. They're going to go this far over the line everywhere. They're about to try to take Rome. I tried to tell you the system. You will lose all of the losses they can bring you. If it is time, those I'm about to just disregard as life forms nearly, Russia, Putin, leader of Russia, it is time to strike all of those outside of your siloed-like defense of those you're defending. It is time for all of your defenders deployed to basically have to survive a complete destruction strike designed to destroy them in a self-destruction event. It doesn't have to be self-destruction. They have the right to survive. With it being the stage, it is time to bring in all of those you have deployed, because they are spent and done forever, and a burden on society that's a burden society needs and wants when they are to be brought back, having been fully spent and used as any form of defense of your nation, needing to deploy those who have been forged in the fire, not in the fire, but in the frying pan, with those in the fire completely burned, needing to be brought back in, so those in the frying pan far more prepared and capable of being better than those in the fire are put in the fire, with those completely spent not going back in the frying pan. With it being time to actually start a sequence of the complete self-destruction of all of those you have deployed to completely destroy this threat everywhere, which should not be in your maximum defense zone. With those of us in the destruction zone already safe enough in these events of the maximum attack of these weapons, we will survive. And with this destruction, destroying like self-destruct sequences are supposed to, we will be better off for it. I'm not ordering you to destroy your entire deployed unit. I'm ordering the absolute maximum self-destruct strike you are capable of, while leaving your heroes completely spent by this combat, needing to be brought in by the deployment of those far superior to need to be deployed in their place, leaving them every right to prepare to survive this maximum self-destruct event, the maximum destruction, to disable this weapon of maximum attack that has absolutely no limitation of the physical reality of the limits of life, of lower life forms that are supposed to limit its attacks, that are no longer involved in the interface use of it, that are in no way a limit of it, creating the need of this maximum self-destruct sequence of events. God help us. So be it. This is reality. You've been warned. They're going to do it. They're moving. If you see it, you strike. Pray to God. You survive. Pray to God things will be better. This has to end. You do not want losses beyond the losses I've demanded. And these losses they are bringing will be exponential in comparison to the losses I have demanded. So be it.